I'm Congressman Bill Johnson, and I represent the 6th District of Ohio. I've been involved with the UXO Demining Caucus now for how long, Laura? 5-6 years. Very honored to help with this work. I got involved in this after taking a trip to Sri Lanka some years ago and seeing the war widows up in the conflict zone, what had been the main battle areas of their decade-long civil war, down on their hands and knees, taking sections of land about rectangularly about half the size of that table, and very painstakingly by hand trying to dig through, taking out 1/4 of an inch of dirt at a time to try and find any unexploded ordnance there. And the war widows had to do it because most of the sons and husbands had been either killed or captured or disappeared, or they just never showed back up. Very sad situation in Sri Lanka, but the only way that they could reclaim their land was for these war widows to do it themselves, and so they worked for Halo Trust. Anybody from Halo Trust here today? Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry, I didn't look around. So those war widows worked with Halo Trust to clear the mines from their legacy property, and it really had an effect on me. So when the opportunity came up to be a co-chair of the UXO Demining Caucus, I jumped at it, and I'm so glad that Chrissy Houlahan, she and I share something in common. We're both Air Force veterans and certainly understand the unexploded ordnance issue, maybe better than some, but proud to work with her, and you'll hear from her in just a few seconds. But I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. You know, it's just a few days after Veterans Day when we pay tribute to the men and women that wear uniform, and for this event, it's even more significant after Veterans Day when we focus on U.S. veterans saving lives through implementing humanitarian demining and weapons security programs, looking at veterans that are doing that tough work. And I can tell you, they're not doing it because they couldn't find a lot of other things to do. They're doing it because something motivates them inside to do that work. That's the kind of people that they're made out of, and really proud to know them. Our discussion today will highlight the importance of these life-saving programs to our U.S. Military community. I want to specifically thank our panelists today for being here. I know some of them have flown in straight from the field. Piers, Dave, Ryan, and Solomon, thank you all for your service and for your work to create safer environments for civilians and service members abroad. You know, after serving, as I mentioned, 26 plus years in the United States Air Force myself, I understand the impact that this work has on the lives of the heroes serving our country. Too often, explosive devices or weapons stolen from government stockpiles abroad have been used to target U.S. and allied forces. I imagine that some of you in this room have firsthand experience with this, whether in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, or maybe somewhere else. During my time in Congress, one of my top priorities has always been ensuring that our veterans and their families receive the care and support and the benefits that they have so rightfully earned and deserve. And as co-chair of this UXO Demining Caucus, I'm proud of the work that we've accomplished, Chrissy and I, and before us, Jackie Spears and others, to ensure that explosive devices are eliminated as quickly as possible, mainly through the State Department conventional weapons destruction programs. And I'm very pleased that the House Appropriations Bill for state and foreign operations includes increased funding for these important programs by nearly $8 million in FY24. It's my hope that increased support for these programs will enhance international security in addition to preventing both military and civilian casualties, because let's face it, no one is in a better position than the United States, both technologically and personnel-wise, resource-wise, to lead this effort. I mean, if we don't do it, and countries like the United States that has the wherewithal doesn't do it, who is going to do it? It just simply won't get done. As we know, for the civilians living in war zones, we've seen it over and over again, the conflict isn't over when the fighting stops. It can take years, even decades, for their land to be cleared of all the unexploded ordnance and once again be safe and usable. So thank you all again to our panelists for the work that you're doing across the globe. And with that, let me turn the mic over to my good friend and colleague and fellow co-chair, Congresswoman Chrissy. Chrissy.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And please feel free to come on in closer as we have this conversation. I am also privileged to be here to have the opportunity to talk to you about this subject of unexploded ordnances. I come to this conversation from a different path. We do have in common that we served in the Air Force. I also happen to be a third-generation veteran. My dad was Navy, my grandfather Navy, my brother Army. This is, in some ways, service is the family business. But my dad also happened to serve in Vietnam and also was born in what is now Ukraine and Lviv. And so I was sort of raised in this paradoxical place where war is in many cases necessary. And there is such a thing as just war. And we're sometimes seeing that even now in places like Ukraine. But it does come with consequences after the war, with people who have obviously lost their lives, and also with what remains behind that needs to be restored to its original conditions so that people who still remain are able to live on, continue on with their life. So here at the, in Congress now, I'm fortunate enough to be the co-chair of the UXO Demining Caucus. I also serve on the Armed Services Committee, and that's kind of where I hope to be most useful. I'm grateful to you as veterans who come home from wars and turn around and decide that you're going to use that good that you have to continue the work to make sure that we restore peace in the best way possible. Conventional weapons destruction programs are a key part of allowing the United States and the world to heal and to move forward from the conflict that we all know is sometimes necessary. It is part of that path to peace, long-term peace and security that the veterans fought for, and that they are helpful in making sure it is sustained. So I feel this very deeply about a lot of the conflicts that have happened around our world in the last generations. Many of them still struggle to have safe places to live. I think particularly about Ukraine, and the fact that my dad, was born into 1942 into this situation, raised me to understand that part of the world is just basically trounced every 20 to 40 years by somebody, and here that happened again. I look forward to making sure that whatever the resolution of that crisis is, and many of the other ones that have happened within our lifetimes, many of them in the Middle East and Asia, are resolved with safe places for people to live. I do want to thank you, those of you who are here to join us on the panel for coming from so far in some cases and for doing the work that you do. It is very important, as my colleague Bill mentioned, that our troops and that we have access to the best possible equipment to make sure that we can address explosive hazards, that we make sure that we're staying ahead of enemy threats, and that we are also leading in our work to help demine the world. And that's why our office were able to add an amendment to the NDAA, which is the Defense Authorization Act, that would allow for $23 million to the Army Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Program. So I'm really happy that that amendment was adopted as well, and that the House budget draft at this point does also include $2 million uplift over last year's allocation. So we don't know exactly how the NDAA is all going to work out or when that's going to all work out, but please know that these issues are front and center of the conversations. Thank you again for being here. I believe that I'm sort of serving in the capacity of the MC. I do think that we have a video to play for us, and I will say cue the beautiful lead footage.
Hello, Senator Tammy Baldwin here, and I am happy to join all of you for today's congressional briefing. First, I'd like to thank Representatives Chrissy Hullahan and Bill Johnson and the Unexploded Ordnance and Demining Caucus for hosting this important and timely event. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the veterans on today's panel: Piers, Brecher, Dave Chavez, Ryan Hendrickson, and Solomon Black. Thank you for your service to our country and your bravery in working to ensure the security and safety of others. Today, we join to highlight the progress we've made in our demining efforts worldwide and recognize the remaining work ahead. I've met with landmine survivors in Vietnam and heard their heart-wrenching stories of the consequences of these remnants of war. That's why I have been proud to lead bipartisan legislation in Congress to authorize funding for the removal of landmines and unexploded ordnance and support victim assistance programs for those injured by landmines and other legacies of the Vietnam War. As a member of the Senate Appropriations Defense Subcommittee, I was proud to have championed increased support for the Army's Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Program to advance demining technology and further our fight to remove dangerous explosives. As landmines continue to be a threat to the lives of our service members and civilians, it's critical that we keep investing in resources that will help us innovate to make demining safer for our military and save lives. That's why I was proud to join my colleagues earlier this year in sending a letter to the Defense Appropriations leadership calling for $23 million for this program to ensure our deminers have the tools they need to eliminate explosive hazards and create safer communities around the world. All of this work is only possible because of the brave people working in demining. For the veterans doing this work and answering the call to service once again, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your work is saving lives. I'm honored to be your partner in the fight to ensure deminers have the right tools for the job and can eliminate explosive hazards more safely, more efficiently, and more effectively. Thank you.
Excellent, and we really want to thank Senator Baldwin for those comments. We have the opportunity now to introduce our panel, and before I do that, I want to make sure that you all recognize that you are part of the audience. And so this panel will be introducing themselves and talking about their backgrounds, but you need to be thinking, you may be able to tell I was a teacher at one point, about questions that you might have for these panelists, because you can't put it all on us to ask all the questions. So please make sure you have one prepared. So first up, we have Piers Brecher. Make sure I got that one right. Training and operations from the Training and Operations Office with Halo, Ukraine, and he served in the U.S. Army as an infantry office in the 101st Airborne Division, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Next, I believe to his right, we have Dave Chavez, Technical Field Manager for MAG Ecuador, who served in the Army for 12 years, including tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we are also joined by Ryan Hendrickson, owner and founder of Tip of the Spear Landmine Removal, a retired U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret from the 7th Special Forces Group. And finally, Solomon Black, the branch chief of the Africa, Europe, and Middle East Division of the Office of Weapons Removal and Abatement at the U.S. Department of State. He previously served as an active duty Marine Corps combat engineer, So these guys are all pretty badass, and I will love it if you guys would each introduce yourselves, and then we can get to questions. Do you have a microphone?
I don't. I'll just try and speak loudly. If I'm not speaking loudly enough, just do that at me and I'll
Here, let's see.
project.
Solve the problems.
Thank you.
Does this work? Yeah, it works.
Awesome.
There you go.
See, that's what Air Force people do.
Yeah, and the Army just shouts at it. Hi everyone, my name is... That's too bad. Hi everyone, my name is Piers, Brecher. I'm here with the Halo Trust. First of all, let me just please say thank you to the co-chairs here. It's an incredible honor to be here. So, Congressman Johnson, Congressman Houlahan, thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much to the State Department and to the Department of Defense's Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Wing. Our work would not be possible without you. And then just thank you to everyone else in the panel and in the audience. It's a real honor to be here with you. And yeah, it's great to be sharing this space with you. For those of you who don't know us, the Halo Trust is one of the world's largest humanitarian demining organizations. We have 12,000 employees around the world, spread over 30 countries, not least of which is my own home program that I'm coming to you from, which is Halo Ukraine, which represents 1,000 of those employees, and I'm sort of here representing them. A little bit about me. I was an infantry officer with the 101st Airborne based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. When the time came to leave the Army, I was not sure what civilian life would hold for me, and I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to find the same values and things that I appreciated about the Army in civilian life, trying to find a job that would give me that same sense of mission, would give me that same sense of community and working towards a common goal. I feel incredibly lucky that I found in Halo an organization that does share that sense of mission and that commitment and that willingness to risk and to give everything for the cause of helping people. And in Halo Ukraine, I have that, more than I could ever hope for. Currently in Ukraine, I'm an operations and training officer, so I get to work on helping to clear the land of explosive contamination there, but also get to work with some really incredible Ukrainians, training them on how to do it, how to be deminers, and also how to take leadership positions, how to be field officers within our organization. It's an incredible experience, and I just want to speak to that for a second. I was talking to some of our deminers recently. They come to us from all sorts of different backgrounds. Much like people come to the Army from different backgrounds. We have, in this small group, we had a former professional dancer, a former volleyball referee, former doctor, former policeman from the Donbass, all of whom we had to head west because they'd been displaced from their homes. And I mentioned one of them, I said, how are you liking your new job? And he said, it's not a job, it's a mission. He would have fit in at Fort Campbell, he would have fit in the Army and the military. So I think it's easy to see from that why the transitions we made easy getting to work with these incredible people. We had another who Halo had the opportunity to offer her a chance to leave Ukraine to go work in another one of our programs, another one of the 30 that we have spread across the world. She'd be out of the war zone, she'd be working as an international worker, be paid more there, she'd be safe, she'd be all of these things. She turned me down point blank, not because she didn't want to do it, wasn't interested in doing it. She told me that she had to finish the job in Ukraine first, and that she joined Halo to help Ukraine. So to be able to put those people on their feet and help those people work on their mission and join in that is fantastic. I don't feel I have a job because of them. I feel that I share in that mission. If I can offer one last thought, which is, when you go to Ukraine, everywhere you see the phrase Slava Ukraini, which is glory to Ukraine, but the response to that is always Om Slava, which is glory to the heroes. A lot of the time people give us, sort of the military credit and that title. However one feels about that, in them I get to meet people who really are inspiring and heroes, so it's a fantastic opportunity. So yeah, thank you again to everyone involved, and thank you Congress for having us.
Thank you for being here.
is Dave Chavez. Thank you for your time, and everybody for your time for being here. The opportunity to share my story. A little bit about me. I enlisted in the Army in 2004 straight out of high school. I'm from Texas. So I joined the infantry, where from there I deployed in 2006 to Iraq. Came back and I decided I wanted to go to Explosive Ordnance Disposal, or EOD school. So I went to EOD school. My first station was Germany. From Germany, I was deployed to Afghanistan. Came back, then deployed to Egypt. After Egypt, I ended up my rotation in the Defense Threat Reduction Agency here at Fort Belvoir. So this was my last duty assignment. And that's where I separated from the Army in 2016. I separated after 12 years in the military. I was fortunate enough to find a job in the area as a contractor. I did it for about a year and a half. And again, something like Piers mentioned, it was okay, but it was an awful job. It was something very different than I was used to. So I got approached by an NGO that they could make use of my military skills for a lot less pay and in a country where it's very dangerous. So obviously I said yes. Let's see what it goes. So that's where how I entered to the NGO world and doing what I did. But I thought it was about landmine clearance, as Piers was talking about. But it wasn't. It was about PSM, or physical security and stockpile management. It was the other side of the coin of what we do. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I didn't know the U.S. State Department funded these kinds of programs. And it was very exciting for me because one, it's very specific military skills that they use that not everybody knows how to do. And you can travel around the world helping people, so what could go wrong? So fast forward to 2020, I was sent to Ecuador to open a new program for PSSM. There we do a range of things, including assessments for the police armories, military armories, explosive storehouses, and support destruction of obsolete weapons and explosives. So this type of support is greatly appreciated by the Ecuadorian authorities because it strengthens our relationships with the Ecuadorians, with the police and military, and specifically on security. So this particular, it is very important right now in Ecuador because the country has experienced a massive spiral of weapons-fueled violence and insecurity in the last 3 years since I've been there. It used to be the lower 5 of top homicide rates in Latin America in 2020 when I arrived, and now it's the top 5 in just 3 years. So a little bit of my experience in Ecuador. So I remember going into an armory, and I see about 2,000 rifles stacked up on top of each other. And the armorer is sitting there happy to show me his armory because he knows I can probably assist him. He doesn't know what I'm going to do or what I'm going to assess. I see 2,000 rifles sitting there, all stacked together. And I thought to myself, and I asked him, I said, do you know that all 2,000 of your weapons are here? Like, how do you know? Like, how long would it take for him to notice if one was missing? I didn't let him answer, but I immediately said, hey, do you want some weapons racks? Because these weapons racks are additional lock, and you can see if one is missing, you can see it, it helps with your inventory control. Obviously, he was very excited, and we made it happen. But it's little things like that you wouldn't think, like a weapons locker, isn't that important? But it's these little things for them that they don't have the funding for that do make a difference, because it makes a difference if somebody's stealing a weapon or not, and you're noticing for 6 months or not. Again, opportunity theft is an issue that I've seen due to those lack of mind controls and safeguards, such as limiting who enters the armory, because everybody's your friend. So yeah, what's the big deal? Come in, look at my armory, no worries. But whenever you see those stack of weapons or pistols that are easier to put in your pocket, it's very easy to walk away with it and nobody knows when it disappeared. So who do you blame? You don't know. So throughout this project, we've secured over 6,000 weapons into racks. We've worked in over 26 bases across the country, destroyed over 7,000 small arms and light weapons, 77 tons of obsolete munition, along with 91 manpads. So in closing, I would just like to say my experience in Ecuador has showed me how interconnected the world is. The demand for illicit drugs comes from South America, fuels a violent black market for the controlled supply. The market share are expanded and enforced usually by violence. The weapons are usually procured in illegal fashion, and since the black market doesn't use banks, large amounts of cash are being moved around, which opens the door to further armed violence. While we may not have an overnight solution, programs like these support the reduction of armed violence in countries and meet the real needs on the ground to address the root cause of instability and violence.
fascinating. Next we have Ryan.
All right, so, okay, that's loud. Ryan Hendrickson, Tip Spear, Landmine Removal, which is kind of a newer startup as of last year. So basically my background comes from 7 Special Forces group out of Florida. Well, was Bragg, now Florida, but retired 22 years and retired as a Green Beret. I worked as a contractor for Khaki Wexford for a little bit under DITRA as a jet, so we were kind of both DITRA guys for a minute. I was a jet advisor and closed down Afghanistan. I left Afghanistan in July of 21. Once I left Afghanistan, I was faced with that very common question that a lot of veterans have today, and that question is, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Who am I now? I've spent my entire career in Afghanistan and a little bit in Iraq, but now, what am I supposed to do? And so, it didn't take long for me to get that answer. February 22nd happens, and as the world watched the Russians escalate the conflict in Ukraine, I felt a calling or desire, maybe a question mark. What could I be doing over there to help? And so the one question came up in my mind: should I go over there and fight? I'm decent at it. And no, that wasn't it. What can I go over there and do? So I went over and I volunteered with a missionary organization. And we were evacuating women and children out of, at that time, the suburbs of Kyiv, Brecher, Irpin, and some of those other spots that people know pretty well. As the Russians started to withdraw to the east, civilians started to move back to their homes, as all people do, to assess the damage. What's left? What am I coming back to? And as civilians started to come back, that's when the civilian casualty rate started to increase from landmines, booby traps, and explosive hazards. And so, where Tip the Spear landmine removal got its start was we were driving through a checkpoint, and there was these Ukrainian soldiers trying to figure out how to operate a handheld detector. Stop the car. Let's talk. And it started from there. They were told by their commander, okay, you guys are sappers, and we're going to clear this field. And they said, I don't know what I'm doing. What do we do? Like, just with a bayonet, go out there and poke around until we find something? So I guess it's a technique, not the preferred, but it is a technique. So we got them spun up on the detectors. I got 3 hours with them. And that's when I started realizing, hey, there's something to this. We can come over here and we can help people. And then I also realized what my purpose was. That question that I had from Afghanistan, that question that I had after I got out of the military and contracting was done, Afghanistan closed the way it did. I'm looking back and I'm trying to figure out who is Ryan Hendrickson. And I found it. I found it that day in April in Ukraine. But I also realized I'm not the only veteran that has that same question. And so if I found my purpose, helping others with something that I'm decent at, not the best. I've stepped on an IED in Afghanistan. I found it, but so I am good at finding them. Just I have my own methods of doing it. But I knew that if I could find my purpose doing this, then there's other veterans that are like me, because veterans are a weird breed. There is a need to go and bag groceries for free or go and serve food at a home shelter or something like that, absolutely. But veterans need a little bit of adventure, need a little bit of danger, need a little bit of, risk to it. Landmine removal has a little bit of all that. And so we started, bringing in more veterans, and we're training Ukrainians, and we're force multiplying, and we're going out and we're doing great things. And we're moving mines, we're going to the areas that have been newly liberated, and we're starting to prep these areas for civilians that are coming back, whether you want to or not. Whether Kyiv says, don't come back, it's too dangerous, it doesn't matter. You're not going to keep Ukrainians from their home. And so we start getting these places at least safe enough with our counterparts, the State Emergency Service, DSNS. And then it turned into, okay, this now is the purpose. And so what a lot of veterans are facing today is they're facing that question mark of what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And as, you know, Congressman Johnson and Congresswoman Houlahan said, like, veteran, the purpose of what we bring to mine action around the world, giving veterans that purpose to be able to serve at that higher level and to help people, because I've heard time and time again we have a crisis with post-traumatic stress disorder in the veteran community, and I disagree. I believe we have a crisis with having a higher purpose and doing something that's bigger than yourself. And that's what I found in the mine action world with our 501c3 tip of spear landmine removal. And that's the reason why we are veteran ran, veteran owned, veteran everything. And it's for that higher purpose. So that's, I appreciate you guys letting me have my couple of minutes, probably way too many, but thank you.
No, that was very inspirational. And last but not least, Solomon.
Hey, good. I work in the State Department's Office of Weapons Removal and Abatement from the branch chief for Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. As noted, I previously served as a Marine Corps combat engineer. I would first like to thank Representative Hullahan and Bill Johnson for their continued leadership of the UXO Caucus. The U.S. remains the world's largest donor to demining and conventional weapons destruction. Since 1993, the U.S. has provided $4.6 billion in over 120 countries. This work saves lives, enables post-conflict recovery, strengthens food security, and provides critical support to America's allies across the globe. None of this would be possible without sustained congressional support, and for that, I thank you and your fellow members of Congress. A bit about myself and kind of how I got into all of this. I've been interested in war and the tools used to wage it ever since I was a little kid, right? What started as a healthy obsession with little plastic toys and visiting Civil War battlefields eventually led me to a Marine Corps recruiting office in the fall of 2020, just north of Boston. I walked in there and I was, Marine Corps recruiter's kind of wildest dream. Here's a guy, reasonably fit, no felony convictions, likely to graduate high school, 10 fingers, 10 toes, let's sign this guy up. I went in there, I told the Marine Corps recruiter, I want to travel the world, I want to learn how to blow things up, what can we do here? He said, oh, you want to be a combat engineer? He explained the roles and responsibilities. I said, perfect, sign me up. I ended up shipping off to boot camp August 15th, 2021. While I was in boot camp, 9/11 happened, and kind of my plans to spend 4 years traveling the world, blowing things up and having exotic experiences, were quickly turned on their head. I ended up doing 2 combat tours to Iraq, and those tours really opened up my eyes to the dangers of landmines, IEDs, and other explosive hazards. The deployment that really got me into this space, got me excited about the impact forward to be done. It was my second deployment to Iraq in 2004, 2005. During that deployment, my unit was attached to an infantry battalion in Ambar Province, Iraq. As a combat engineer team leader, our job was to provide all sorts of engineer support required. So everything from disabling landmines and IEDs to urban breaching, route recon, all that good stuff. And so on any given day, we would go out and we'd support a unit on a raid or a patrol, and if we encountered an IED or a landmine, they'd send out the engineers to figure out what it was we saw on the route. We'd figure out what it is, and if it posed a direct threat, we would blow it up. This work was extremely impactful for me because every time we blew something up, whether it was an IED or a landmine, we knew that we were keeping American troops safe, we were keeping Iraqi troops safe, we were keeping Iraqi civilians safe. During this deployment, we got to do all the work with the IEDs and the landmines I just talked about, but we also had another job, which was destroying enemy weapons caches. And so anytime we would find weapons that were stockpiled by insurgents in Iraq, it was our job to blow it up. Right? I got to do exactly what I signed up for. It was fantastic. And we got to do a lot of this during the Battle of Fallujah, known as Operation Phantom Fury. The insurgents in Fallujah had planted weapons caches throughout the city so that they could double back through these holes in buildings, resupply under white flag, where civilians don't shoot us, they circle back around us, rearm themselves and attack. So it was critical to destroy these weapons caches as we were going through the city. Unlike finding some bombs on the side of the road, bringing them to the desert and blowing it up, this involved us going into a house during a gunfight, finding out that the house we were currently hunkering down was also a bomb factory, and then we'd have to figure out how are we going to blow this bomb factory up during a running gunfight, and then before we move to the next building so folks can't double back around and use all the stuff that's in this building to then attack us and our Iraqi allies. So while blowing up 20 mortars on the side of the road is pretty stress-free once you've been doing it for a while, blowing up 20 mortars during the gunfights, that really kept things interesting. While this work and the work that my fellow panel members continue to do is extremely dangerous, knowing that we were saving lives in Iraq, both Iraqi lives and American lives, day in and day out, provided a level of job satisfaction and motivation that I had never experienced before, just like the other panelists I've spoken to. After this deployment, I left the Marines for college, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, but knowing that I wanted to work in international relations, and I wanted to try to find a job that could replicate that feeling somehow, some way. After a handful of different jobs at DoD and state over the last, 10, 15 years, I finally found what I was looking for at the State Department's Office of Weapons Removal and Abatement. The Department of State takes great pride in leading U.S. efforts across the globe to advance conventional weapons destruction priorities, which include clearing landmines, unexploded ordnance, and building the capacity of our partners to manage, safely and securely manage arms and ammunition. These essential humanitarian efforts are made possible by the generosity of the American people and Congress. During my time in WRA, I've had the opportunity to both manage awards or programs, but then also kind of oversee teams that are designing, implementing, providing oversight and evaluation of this. And it's amazing to just see the work that we do, right? It saves lives, promotes post-conflict recovery, strengthens food security, advances a number of U.S. foreign policy priorities, and just makes the world a better place. Just to name a couple of the kind of interesting things that I've had the opportunity to work on, and that your tax dollars are allowing the State Department to do to advance U.S. priorities around the world. The Ukraine response, which you've already heard about, right? The U.S. has dedicated $182 million since January 2022 to demining Ukraine. This plays a critical role in advancing recovery priorities in Ukraine. Across the Sahel, the United States has worked with our partners across that Sahel to train them to better manage and secure ammunition and weapons so those weapons don't make it into the hands of destabilized non-state actors. And then lastly, the United States has invested a significant amount of resources in clearing landmines and UXO in northern Iraq from the Nineveh plains so that members of persecuted Iraqi religious and ethnic minorities can move back to their homes. These are communities that were targeted for genocide by ISIS. Your tax dollars are enabling these people to safely move home, and it's really important work. I'm fortunate to have found a place where I can continue to pursue my passion for addressing explosive hazards, and I encourage other veterans with experience or interest to get involved, either with the U.S. government or with the organizations sit up here with me today. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
You guys are really inspirational, and I'm very grateful that I got to hear all of your stories. I know that you shared that with me. I did warn you that there would be an opportunity for questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
This may be a little off topic, but I'm just curious, during your separation from your various branches, during the transition assistance process, given that I think most veterans, if not all, seek
I think in my experience, it's broadly, or it's not broadly talked about, it's just skimmed over, look at job opportunities. That's a very broad thing to say, because that's like saying look for a job. So I think it's specifically what you did in the military is what drives you to look for what you're looking for. For example, in my field, DoD, I looked for who does DoD things because it's what I know. So nobody wants to branch out to something totally different. They want to at least step into something they know until they get a feel for it. I think there should be more of that to find out what you can do with your skills, with your military skills. Just because you did something in the military doesn't mean it doesn't translate to NGOs or other things. There's a lot of things that could be talked about and that translate over, because I think a lot of military skills are undervalued. You don't realize what you bring to the table.
Just speaking from my experience, I made sure I had a shoot before I jumped. I knew I was going to Halo, so when I did the one-on-one interviews, I would say, hey, I want to get a job lined up. But out of curiosity, I did try and sort of look at the websites and the sort of apps that they encourage you to go through, and I can say that NGOs are not suggested really. I mean, it's very generic. You might want to look at working for a charity, but there wasn't much in the way of specific. This could be an avenue for you. I'd say at least the computer programs have an expectation that you're going to do something more commercial.
I mean, for us, it's basically who you know when you get out. So we do have the 6 month. I'm probably going to butcher it. I don't really remember, but 6 months where you can go look for a job or whatnot, figure out a field that you want to be in, and go from there. As far as NGO where it goes, established 501c3s or 501c3s do fall underneath that, but it's not widely broadcasted. So in the end, it is basically who you know, and to get into the NGO world. But we are, as far as that, I guess 6 month work release. I guess that's what I've got way of saying it. But as far as that goes, we are allowed to work with NGOs as long as they are 501c3. But no, it's not broadcasted what they are. So.
My experience is probably a bit dated. As an enlisted Marine that got out after 4 years, 18 years ago, we were kind of just cut loose and on our own after getting the spiel from the retention officer about how we might want to stay in because we're going to lose dental insurance. So yeah, no real thing back in the day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Representative Hullahan, and I want to thank all of you for your testimony today and for your service to our country and for your community. Mr. Black, you had mentioned that the United States has remained the world's largest contributor to this cause, and especially given $4.6 billion since 1993 to over 100 countries. I want to see if you knew, or any of the panelists knew, of other countries that are also up there with the United States, which ones might be, whether they're our partners or allies. And in addition to that, as a follow-up, what can be done domestically, from Congress's perspective, to also get other nations to engage in increasing their funds and getting more countries involved in this?
Thank you. That's a great question. So getting other countries involved, this is something that we try to do. We work with all of our partners and we encourage people to provide more money in this space. While the U.S. is hands down the largest donor, there are other countries that are very active. Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands are all involved. Japan is a large donor as well. And then we've also worked very closely with the British, the Canadians, and the Germans. We're kind of like the big three outside of the ones that I already named. A great example of cooperation there would be we have contracts in both Iraq and Ukraine with a U.S. company called Tetra Tech, which is represented here today. Over the years, we've worked with some of these other donors to program their funding through our contracts, right? The United States, through my office, has a larger mechanism for overseeing and managing this type of demining assistance than other partners do. So to maximize the impact that our foreign partners can make, we often reach out to them and say, hey, we have a contract in Ukraine. We understand you might not have the mechanism in your foreign ministry or development service to manage a contract, but if you send us X dollars, we can put that on our contract and program that. And so we've had some great cooperation with those countries over the years on efforts like that.
Any other questions from the audience? Bill, question?
I'll get one.
Oh, wait, somebody has another?
I've got to run to another
No,
meeting.
what is, we have this, yeah, go ahead. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Okay.
One last question.
One last question. I've got to run because I've got a meeting in my office.
Yeah.
Not a problem, I'll be quick. Michael Montoya, former Marine EOD tech, another family security guy like yourself. I know this is centric about the veterans and stuff getting there, but what can be done about helping those veterans that have that EOD and combat engineering demining experience get the companies, organizations to keep that experience going as opposed to having to try to follow organizations that are established. So is there a support program, or can it be a support program to get the direct veterans right into these situations as opposed to, kind of grasping at straws because little guy versus, establishment type thing? Is there something that can be done in the future for this? That, like with Brian Hendrickson's group starting out, kind of, small business set-asides or whatever it may be. Something to think about. I don't know if it's a question more.
Meaning sort of, is there a way to provide more clear pathways for people as they separate, more clear understanding of the purpose and use of their skills in organizations such as these?
Right, especially like business and for the groups like the combat engineers or the EOD techs going directly into it, So it's getting those guys capturing their skills or helping them establish themselves within the community and bringing that experience directly into it and supporting them because it's hard when you're small.
Yeah.
It's easier when you get
Yeah, I actually did want to, maybe this, I know we do need to close because I also, I'm sure you as well need to go places. But it did bring up the question, I think, Ryan, you are the founder of this organization. It's a 501c3. And how did you make the decision that you would rather start an organization? I know you spoke of your origin story, kind of where it started, but I'm an entrepreneur myself. I know how hard it is. I've started nonprofits and for-profits. How did you make those decisions? And is there a way that we could maybe in Congress make it easier for you all to start organizations and participate in them?
I think the biggest factor for me starting up the organization that I did was, I alluded to in 2010, I stepped on an IED that almost killed me in Afghanistan. So I know the pain, and I understood the mindset of what am I going to do now? And so then, as I also said before, finding that purpose and helping other people through my action. The reason why I chose to set up what I did was because I had the question that a lot of veterans face when they get out, and that is, like I said earlier, what am I going to do now? Who am I? And I found not having a purpose, especially in the veteran world, is very deadly. People don't understand it, but purpose is what is, and the lack of purpose is what is really contributing to the 22 a day. I shit you not. It is contributing to the 22 a day and is the lack of purpose. And so when I found my purpose, basically I just wanted to make it official. And that's what.
Did you have to find capital for that? How did you raise capital? How did you start the organization?
So that's a tough one right there. The biggest way that we raise funds is through social media. We're showing people what we're doing. We're very visual on social media with what we're doing, and we just show people this is where your donations are going towards. And then what we do is we'll purchase a bunch of detectors. Our preferred detector is the CHAD handheld detector, and we'll go to Ukraine. We'll work with the unit, we'll train them on the equipment, we'll demine with them so we know that they're going to use the equipment for what it's for, and then we donate everything over to them, and then come back and we repeat it again, and it all starts with basically the social media funding campaigns. That's the only fundraising we've done.
Thank you, and thank you all for your contributions, both in uniform and now after. And thank you all for the audience for being here for this important conversation. Some of you all are staff members. Please make sure you help remember to understand, what we talked about. Please help recruit other staffers and members as well, because there's a lot of energy around, a lot of hot wars right now, but those become the issues that we're talking about right now, and so please recruit so that we can help make these places more safe. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your turkey days.